Time for another installment of Martial Law with attorney Marshall Chriswell. Information on this segment should not be taken as legal advice. Laws can vary by jurisdiction and circumstance, and you should consult with a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction, someone just like Marshall Chriswell, who's on the line with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us here today. It's been a while since we've talked about real estate law and real estate transactions, and from the buyer standpoint or from the seller standpoint, there are probably things that we should review since it's been a while. So let's start our conversation there today and talk. If you are somebody who is selling a property, what are some of the basic things that you should be doing in terms of your legal obligations?
Sure. So if you're selling a property, now you want to make sure to comply with disclosure requirements. That's a big one. If you're selling a residential property with 4 or less units in it, so whether it's your own house or an investment or rental property or small apartment building, Pennsylvania law requires you to disclose defects at the property, any material defects, and they're to comply with this law. There are forms that you go through and you fill out, and it has it's sectioned into each system in your home, whether it be the roof or the drainage system, the HVAC and electrical and plumbing. And you go through and you fill it out, and it says, okay, what type of wiring and what type of plumbing, and has there ever been leaks, and all these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And then you provide that to any potential buyers, and that fulfills your requirements. And you want to make sure that when you're completing those forms, that you are honest and disclose all defects, major repairs that have been made, improvements that have been made to the property, all this stuff, so that nobody can come back later and say that you attempted to hide something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so there is there a line drawn between known and unknown?
There is. So you obviously you have to report all known defects. So there may be things from prior owners that you're not aware of and that you wouldn't be responsible for unless those things had been disclosed to you.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, when you think about the way homes would settle as the years go by, underground issues, those might not be things that you're aware of, but there could be some that are indicators, such as basement leakages and things of that nature, cracks in the foundation, and those are the kinds of known things that you have to disclose.
Absolutely. If you get any, here in our neck of the woods, water in the basement, it's common, but it's a big deal, and it can be a deal breaker for a lot of people. Because it can be very expensive to fix. Sometimes you almost can't fix it just because of the way the water table is or whatnot. Those are things that if you have had any issues with those, and certainly can be an indicator of foundation issues and things like that. So you want to be sure to disclose them so that the seller knows what they're buying, or has the opportunity to have those inspections done. It's another thing we can talk about is contingencies in the sales contract, right? When you're negotiating a sales agreement, from both sides. But particularly from the buyer's side, you want to make sure that you have appropriate contingencies built into the agreement. If you want to have a home inspection done, if you want to have pest inspection, termites, radon, all these things, they've got to be built into the agreement so that in the event that you get those inspections done and major issues arise, you have the ability, you have within the contract to renegotiate the terms, have the seller make repairs, have money taken off the purchase price if that's what you prefer, or to ultimately back out of the deal and receive a return of your hand money deposit and any other potential damages that you have. Reimbursements and things, without being in breach of the contract.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the issues that comes up increasingly, and maybe it's just because we're hearing about it more that I think that it's coming up increasingly, is insurance company inspections of your roof, which now are done by drone as much as by anything. And you might even get a notice in the mail that they have inspected your roof and you had no idea that somebody had done such a thing, but they did it by drone, and they weren't even evident in the neighborhood. And so you might be finding out things about the home that you didn't know about. But obviously, if you're going to be selling them, you might be held responsible for them.
Yeah. And from a buyer perspective, very important to get those inspections done right. Roofs, insurance companies have, premiums have obviously gone up in lots of areas, and they really look to, age of your roof, and they do these inspections. So, you want to know what you're buying in terms of the roof. It's one of the areas of the house, just like inside the walls and things, it's one of the areas that often you can't inspect the entire thing yourself by just doing a walkthrough and walking around the home. Having a home inspector actually get up there and take a look at it, or they often do their inspections by drone as well now. Really important because the life of the roof. If I had at a property that I own, I had my insurance company raise my rates last year and say, well, your roof's over 25 years old, so your rates are going up. And I had actually had the roof replaced the prior fall, and I was able to give them that information. But they, just by virtue of what they had on record as the age of the roof, they raised the rates. So you want to know about how old your roof is and if there are any issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the buyer, certainly you want that information. You want to know every possible thing to know about it. And you should have an attorney involved in asking the right questions, I guess is the way to put it, when you are considering buying a property. And you have to have somebody who knows what are the legal obligations and are those obligations being fulfilled.
Yeah, you do. Now there are great real estate agents out there. If you've decided to market your property with a realtor, they're trained in seller disclosure and things like that. They can be very good at negotiating sale price and the terms of the agreement. So there's they have their role. A lot of times people decide to sell property without listing it with a realtor, or at least try to sell it by without a realtor for a period of time, and see if they can do it themselves. And you really want to have an attorney involved from the beginning, then, to ensure that you're complying with all of those requirements. And on the buyer's side, I always say, really have a conversation with a lawyer as soon as you've got that the sales agreement in your hand. If you've got a realtor involved and you negotiate a deal, if you have questions along the way, legal questions, obviously contact an attorney. But as soon as you get that sales agreement signed, you really should be reaching out for counsel, get your title work done and those kinds of things. So get it done quickly so that you're not missing deadlines, contingency deadlines and other crucial deadlines in the agreement, and making sure that you're getting to closing on time. I have too many folks that call my office and say, well, I'm buying property and I'm set to close in 10 days, so here you go. And and it's very difficult to get all the work done. And again, sometimes you've missed some deadlines.
Yeah. We don't have a ton of time left, but I did want to bring this up too because we have talked about this before. Access to your property is a really important thing.
Legal access, yeah, absolutely. Deal with it all the time. And it's one of those things that sometimes, unless you have an attorney involved early and get your title work done, you don't realize it because sometimes the seller doesn't even realize that they don't have legal access to their property. Maybe they've been using an old road to get back to the house, and they assume that there was a written and recorded easement, or it's been a handshake agreement with the farmer that lives on the adjacent land, and we drive up through his property to get to our house, but it's never been put in writing, or there are the boundary is not where you thought it was, and maybe your driveway isn't actually on your land. It's over across the line, and so legal access issues are prevalent. And it's something that has to be taken care of. If you're number one, if you're getting financing, and you've got to have a title insurance policy. It's going to be very difficult to get title insurance without having legal access, and certainly it's just something that you want to get cleared up. So just like any of these title and boundary issues, you want to catch them early in the process so that we can start getting them fixed because they can really delay things.
Absolutely. All right. So anybody that wants to get in touch with you and get your advice and counsel on terms of property transactions, what should they do, Marshall?
You can always give me a call, 724-465-5826. Stop and see us here in the old RMP building, 655 Church Street, Indiana, or go online, check us out at www.westernpalawyer.com.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for the visit this morning.
Thanks, Todd. Have a great week.
He's Marshall Chriswell. And again, the segment is called Martial Law, and to make sure that you have your legal ducks all in a row if you're transferring property.